We're live, yes. Welcome
right.
back to Talk to Me Africa, Dr. Taka, and thank you so much for accepting to come back to my talk show. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.
I love talking to you.
Thank you so much. You look good, by the way. I think your weight loss program on your book is really working on you, so you do look good.
Well, I try to practice what I preach. And,
Yes, yes. We
as I
talked about
always
this
tell you,
last time, that if I go
yeah.
to my doctor and I don't see him look the way that I expect myself to look when it comes to weight loss, I'm not going to use that doctor. So you do practice what you preach.
Yeah, I always tell my patients that I try to follow my own advice before giving
Yes,
it out. I
that's
test
true.
it out on myself.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Your book, I think, has really inspired me in the way I eat. And not to be afraid of the scale. That's the main thing I got from your book. I am not afraid of the scale at all. So I am confident getting on the scale either at home, at the doctor's office, or at my friend's house. My point is the numbers on the scale don't scare me because I know I
Awesome.
can take care of it.
That's fantastic. That's what it means to be in control.
Yes.
In control, yeah.
Yes. Anyway, so today I wanted to talk about obesity. It's a very important topic, and it seems to be taking over the world today, just like AI is. Everyone is talking about obesity and all these GLP meds and all that. I would like my audience to hear about this from a professional like you. And
Okay.
I know you have a huge following on social media. But for those who don't know Dr. Takem, I was just going to read what you have on your book here. You work a lot with helping people, especially women, to take control of their weight and manage it and keep a good track of it. And throughout this book, you talk about create a calorie bank based on your individual resting metabolic rate, set realistic and attainable goals, and take control of the way you eat and of your life. And when we talked last time, it was about your book in detail. Today, I want to focus on obesity.
Okay.
Obesity is a word that we all use, but what is it? What is obesity?
So obesity basically is a disease. It's now classified as a disease. Not to bore you with too many details, but the way we classify it with...
There's some music playing. You have an invisible DJ.
I think it's my mixer going nuts here.
Your mixer is about to start playing some mixes right now. It's all good. It's all good. That's nice, though.
So, is it out now?
No, it's still on.
So you can hear it? I love technology.
It's not going anywhere.
It's still there? Oh, God.
I think we're getting to know your genre of music.
Yes. How about now? Still there?
It's still there. It's really alive. I'm a radio DJ as well, so I know how it is still there.
So maybe you should tell me how to be rhythm.
This is the most fun I've had on this show in a long time.
It's still there?
It is still there, yes. It's not going anywhere. Still there, yeah.
And strange enough, I can hear it.
Well, you can hear it. You turn it down, but it's still there. The volume is...
This is absolutely crazy. Where's my IT guy? I don't even know. Honestly, I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. Hold on. You
Having
come
battling
back.
some cold and it's making me cough. That's funny.
You
It's
come
good for me. I mean, like I said, I'm also a radio DJ, and I know
back. You
what the
are.
mixer can do to you. Yes, I do that on Sundays. So
Oh, you do that on Sunday?
yes, I go to a live radio station and I play music, African music for 2 hours, and I talk about stories. So
I didn't know that. But maybe
we could just turn it into some kind of music show.
that's assuming I knew what I was doing. Just trying to find a way to shut this thing
I think we just have to reconnect so I can restart. Oh, I thought it's gone. It's not gone yet.
It's not done yet.
No.
Let me see if I can turn it off from
Okay.
the software.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully it doesn't come back. Can you hear me okay?
I'm just thinking of what kind of what genre of music that is, but I can put my finger on it.
Actually, it's I loaded it up on my my mixer to use as as sounds on the podcast depending on the topic. Remember, I was
Okay.
telling you, the new project I have.
Yes, yes.
And so it just went nuts and
That's
interrupted
fine.
everything.
It made me just put myself in my radio studio where I go crazy for 2 hours with music, and I can make it so loud and people are like, what's going on? But
Well,
music is good for the soul.
I hope it stays there. Music is not good for the soul right now. So. But going back to what you asked me about obesity.
Yes, obesity. I'm glad you quickly mentioned it's a disease, because I was wondering, it's a disease or not?
Yes. So obesity itself is a disease. And basically it's a classification based on the body mass index, right? So if your body mass index is 24.9 or less, up to from 19 to 24.9, we tend to consider that normal. If your body mass index is between 20 and 24.9, I'm sorry, between 25 and 29.9, it's considered overweight. If your body mass index is between 30 and 34.9, that's class 1 obesity. From 35 to 39.9, it's class 2 obesity, and everything over 40 is considered class 3 obesity. The reason for these classifications is because from a body mass index of 30 or more, studies have shown that they tend to be associated with some diseases. I'm not saying that everybody whose body mass index is more than those numbers, more than 30, has necessarily a disease. But there are diseases that appear or are high in prevalence when people's body mass index is 30 or more, that is obesity. That's why it's considered a disease in and of itself, because it brings with it certain risk for the for people.
So is that new? The fact that diabetes is not diabetes, the fact that obesity is now considered a disease, is that a new thing? Because I don't think it always has been considered a disease.
No, it's not always been considered a disease. This goes back to several years ago when it actually started. It was added as what we call the ICD codes, the International Classification of Diseases. And then some insurance companies started covering treatment of obesity as a disease. There's also been a change in the way we medical professionals approach obesity. Because of that definition or the inclusion of obesity as a disease, it's also changed the way for instance, I treat it, right?
Yeah.
The way other professionals treat it. In the past, we would think of obesity as a lifestyle thing. You just
Yeah.
do too much. You lack
Yeah.
willpower. You're
Mm-hmm.
just not trying hard enough. Now we deal with it as a disease. The way we deal with high blood pressure or diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
It has a multifaceted faceted approach to treatment with
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle, exercise, diet, nutrition, and medications. That is why it's revolutionized. It has been revolutionized by the appearance of many drugs that actually treat obesity, which I'm sure we will talk
It has
about.
been revolutionized for sure. It really has been. So if
Mhm.
it's a disease, how much does genetics play in this obesity as a disease?
Well, genetics do play a role. There have been many epigenetic studies, looking at twins, identical twins,
Mm-hmm.
and their propensity towards developing obesity. It does play a role. I mean, you can see certain families where people tend to be larger. It also plays a role. Genetics tends to determine also resting metabolic rate, right? Your basic metabolic rate, the amount of calories you tend to burn at
Mm-hmm.
rest. I think every one of us knows that guy or that girl who eats all the rice in the
I
world that never
know.
seems to gain a single pound.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people who are just skinny, they have trouble really gaining any sort of weight, right? They
Mm-hmm.
eat a lot. I mean, I've had people reach out to me on Facebook, on Instagram, saying that I know you talk about people losing weight, but I have a different problem. I want to gain some weight. You have few people like that. There are few and far in between, there are not many, but you
Mm-hmm.
do have some people whose metabolism is just fast, and that is usually determined by your genetics.
Mm-hmm.
But for the vast majority of people, we do have a normal metabolic rate, and we cannot really, it's really not genetics that tends to determine obesity. It's more like lifestyle or
Mm-hmm.
behavioral issues.
Mm-hmm. People talk about binge eating, for example. So would you say that there's some psychological cause of obesity as well?
Yeah, binge eating disorder is definitely it's a psychological disorder. Um, so people, so that you really approach it differently. You approach it as a psychological problem. People have difficulties with controlling the impulse to eat, and
Mm-hmm.
then then they have behaviors like vomiting. Uh, if you're dealing with bulimia,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, that you provoke vomiting or take diuretics to get rid of fluid and things like that. But binge eating, that's why it's classified as binge eating disorder because it's actual an actual disease. But when it comes to psychological issues, I usually tend to point to something else. You know, um, Things like depression, anxiety, but especially depression, um, is a huge component in weight gain. Because if you see people who are usually larger, and I tell my patients all the time, if you weigh 300 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not really because you eat compulsively. It's not generally because you just want to eat or you see food.
Mm-hmm.
It's generally because there is an underlying psychological disorder that makes you A, not care anymore, and
Mm-hmm.
B, use food as medicine. So you're generally, when you see people start going like 100 pounds overweight,
Mm-hmm.
there is already a disconnect between how this person eats, why they eat, and what food means to them. Food
Mm-hmm.
then becomes an emotional crutch. It becomes something that people use to feel better. When they have a problem at work, the person has a problem at work, or they have a problem with a significant order, or they hear bad news, they resort to
Yeah.
eating. Food becomes a medication, it becomes comfort. So in a person like that, you want to first address the psychological problem, because very often, I don't know if many doctors or even many patients come to me and say, doc, I gained 100 pounds during the pandemic, and and I asked them, so why do you think you gained 100 pounds during the pandemic? Well, I think I was at home. I
Mm-hmm.
spent a lot of time at home, and and I just started eating.
Mhm.
Yes, that would explain 25 pounds, but it doesn't explain 100 pounds. So you dig deeper. Well, how was the environment at home during the pandemic? And then you realize that during the pandemic, a lot of people found out that they didn't really like the people they were living with,
True.
right? I mean, during the pandemic really took off the lid on a lot of psychological
Mhm.
problems that were being camouflaged or masked with other distractions. And now a lot of people had to be at home with
Mhm.
other family members
Mhm.
and without the usual distractions. And then they had to face the fact that maybe they were dealing with some mental health issue, and then they started overeating. And so
Yeah.
when you start talking to people, you tend to find out that it is not just that people like food. I mean, like that they just want to eat. It's that they're using food as a psychological crutch to
Mhm.
deal with an emotional situation.
Yeah, I think you have to make a conscious decision not to go to the pantry all the time because the pandemic also caused people like me to work from home a lot, right? And I had to make a conscious decision not to go that way until I need to go that way. There have
Yeah.
been times when I love almonds, for example. I'll like stretch my arm and like, not now. So you can tell yourself that
Mhm.
it's not time and I don't want to do it right now. How powerful is the brain in helping us to combat obesity?
Well, I think that's actually the biggest, the biggest thing. In my book, if you go through the which you have done, I
Hmm.
don't really talk a whole lot. I do talk about exercise. I talk about nutrition. But if you look at the way I structured it, the 5 steps are based on behavioral changes
Hmm.
because behavior, which you quantified as a mindset, is really the most important thing when it
Yeah.
comes to weight loss. Most people kind of know what to eat.
Mhm.
Most people know they need to exercise. You don't have to
Mhm.
tell them, right? Most people will come to me and say, I know I've not been working out. And they will say, I don't eat that much. But after you talk a little bit more, they'll be like, yeah, I actually eat a lot.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is behavior, right?
Mhm.
People have trouble with when I go with my girls at brunch or to go to brunch on Sunday
Mhm.
and they bring all these goodies. How am I going to say no, right? If I have a significant order who likes to eat, order pizza every Thursday night or creates a work stand when they're working from home, people who work from home have their snack stands, right next to them. And people who watch football, for instance, if you have a spouse who likes watching football before the game, he has a snack stand all ready to go. How do you say no, right? So that is really the biggest thing. Motivation,
Mhm.
mindset. You mentioned if you're
Mhm.
going to lose 100 pounds, right, over a year or two, or usually like 2 years, it's not going to happen because you just stuck to a diet.
Mhm.
You went somewhere and somebody gave you a diet and you started following it. Because even people who get their stomachs reduced with
Mhm.
sleeve gastrectomies
Mhm.
still don't lose weight or regain the weight, right? Even with all these things, Ozempic and Monjaro and sleeve gastrectomies, bypass surgeries and phentermine and all of that, it still eventually comes down to behavior. When you go to a place where there is a lot of food, how do you
Mhm.
avoid eating? That is the biggest thing. And if you don't really have a mindset shift, I mentioned 2 things in the book. The first thing was the difference between people who have made a decision to lose
Mhm.
weight and people who desire to lose weight.
Yeah.
Right? When you desire to lose weight, you get
It's
up.
a desire.
It's
Mm.
a desire. I
Yeah.
go to the doctor, doc, I need Ozempic. Please give me Ozempic. I want to stop, eating. And I'll come back. And they come week, month after month to see me and they don't lose any weight. Maybe 2 pounds here, 3 pounds there, maybe two here. And you ask why? Well, I went on vacation. It was my husband's birthday. It was our anniversary. It was Thanksgiving. It was
Mhm.
Christmas. Right?
Yeah.
Then you have the person who's made the decision and they
Yeah.
come to you and say, Doc, I don't want to ever eat food again. I am tired of this weight. I cannot deal with it anymore. Give me something that will make me stop eating. And that's the person who gets the medicine or gets surgery and loses 100 pounds and never looks back. So if you do not have those two things, if you don't make that decision to lose weight, and you never have an enough is enough moment, a moment where you sit back and say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I've had it. It could be that you're taking 15 medications. You're taking insulin for diabetes. It could be that you just don't like the way you feel when you wear wear clothes, and you have to go to you have to go to a party, and then you're taking pictures. You're hiding behind other people to take pictures, or like we guys, we tuck in our stomach, and before we take the pictures.
Girls do it too.
All the things we do, and you might just be at the point where you're like, it's enough. I can't do this anymore. If you don't
really have
that,
to decide. You really have to decide.
Yeah.
You really have to decide.
Yeah. If you don't do that, you'll be.
Somebody comes to you and say, I need medication. It could be like the ones you mentioned, Monjaro or Ozempic, to lose weight. You give it to them. They still have to put in the work for this to be successful.
Yes. And that is really, you just touched on something. That's the biggest misconception with these medications. Even if you take Ozempic or Monjaro, you still have to do the hard work, because there are many people who take it and they don't lose a single pound. Matter of fact, I have patients who actually come back and they've gained 3-4 pounds, 5 pounds.
While taking this medication.
While taking the medications. Because remember, the medication works the way they work, the GLP-1 agonists, and I cover a lot of this on my podcast and the content, but they work by suppressing appetite, right? They work in your brain to reduce the sensation of hunger. Then they work in your stomach by delaying gastric emptying. So when you eat, you take a bite or you eat something that makes you feel full sooner, right? So you don't overeat. But remember that most people do not eat. The vast majority of people who gain excessive weight, they really don't eat because they're hungry.
Yeah.
You eat out of boredom.
Yes.
You eat out of emotion.
Yes. You eat on the clock because it's 7 o'clock, it's 12 o'clock.
Exactly. You wake up in the morning, I'm going to eat breakfast. Are you hungry? No, but you eat breakfast. Or you go to a party, you sit down. Before you even sit down, they bring chin-chin, granite, what's that thing?
It's there before you even sit down.
Yes. What's the one?
Donuts.
Donuts.
Yeah.
The other one, the one you put a little bit of fish
rolls. Fish rolls, meat pie. Yeah, fish
exactly.
pie. Flour.
Yes. And so before your meal even comes, you're done with your calories for like 2 days. Right.
So do you think that we forget that we're going to have a meal? We don't count the little ones that we touch with our fingers and eat. So if there's a meal that's supposed to come at 3 o'clock and I'm sitting down, there's puff, there's donut, there's chin-chin, I eat that, but I don't think that I'm eating. I think I'm going to eat at 3 o'clock, but this is already giving me a lot of calories before I even get the main meal. That could also be a main reason why we gain all the weight.
Exactly. And you touched on it with your almonds.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember, I did a video about almonds, how long it takes to burn.
I saw that you went to walk, and after that, you're like, it takes this little bit of almonds in my palm and this many minutes to walk out to burn. I'm like, wow. And that video, I must confess, it helped me cut down on my almonds because I would eat almonds with groundnut. So I was like, wait, this is doubling the trouble because I can't. I love nuts and I cut down on eating it that way. So thank you for that video.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, I had a lot of people tell me, I eat healthy. I eat almonds.
We think almonds is healthy. Not that healthy.
Yeah. It might be healthy. It has healthy fats, but it comes at the cost of a ton of calories, And so that's really, that's really something we need to pay attention to.
So should we count calories if we want to lose weight?
Yes, we should definitely count calories. I'm a big advocate of counting calories. Now, I know a lot of people are out there saying, I don't want to count calories. No, I don't want, it's too hard. How am I going to know this is Aero and this is Fufu and this is... Now, to all those people, I created the African Diet Guide.
You did, yes.
I did. And I'll be talking a lot more about that in the upcoming days. And I took a lot of foods from, many African countries,
Yes.
and I split them, separate them in 4 grades. So you will easily know what is a grade A, B, C, and D. So that when you sit down and you have a plate of fufu and eru in front of you, you can look at it and say, okay, this is a starch, this is a carb,
Yeah.
this is uh, um, a protein. And I also
Facts.
explain what will help you gain weight and what will help you lose weight. It's funny. I have a patient of mine who came to the office actually yesterday. He came to see me yesterday in the clinic. And he's from Nigeria. He's going to be my guest on the podcast in the upcoming days. And he lost 40 pounds since the last time I saw him about 6 months ago, because the last time he was in the office and he had gained weight, he got to his enough is enough moment, and he was telling me he wanted to lose weight. But he eats a traditional African diet. So I told him, you have to know what you eat. You have
Yeah.
to. Now, if you don't want to sit down and weigh everything, I'll give you an example. If you're going to eat fufu, let your fufu be like this. Okay? It cannot be 3 lumps. Let it be your palm.
Yes. Palm
Rice in
size.
the palm. Yes. And it was funny because when he came back and he started telling me what happened, he recounted everything I told him. And he even went the extra mile. He started weighing his food. He will weigh everything before eating, weigh his rice. And his wife told him, and he's from Nigeria. The wife told him, "You're becoming obsessive with this thing." And
You have to.
anyway, here I will let him tell the rest of the story when
Yes.
when I
We are
have him
looking
on the
forward to that
podcast.
story. It
But
can be so.
mm,
So you say let your food be like this. I mean,
mhm,
I don't know biology that good, but isn't that the size of your stomach, your palm? So wouldn't you
yes,
use
like
that as
a fist. Your carbs
your
generally want to be
fist?
like a fist.
So
Yes.
basically, if I want to fill the stomach, which is like the size of my fist, I should also put food equal to that size, so I don't expand it too much.
Well, you probably so that the reason why this is for your carbs, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have to clarify something. The reason why we insist on people limiting carbohydrates, it's not really because remember a gram of carbohydrate gives you yields 4.2 kilocalories of energy,
Mm-hmm.
as well as same as a gram of protein, still
Mm-hmm.
4.2. So why do we tell people eat protein but don't eat
Eat
carbs?
carbs.
Right?
Wow.
People
Yeah.
always wonder why. Why do we? It's not that we hate carbs. I eat carbs. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the problem is that we love carbs.
It tastes
Most people
good.
cannot stop eating carbohydrates, right?
Yeah.
Whoever goes to the pot to dish jollof rice and just takes 2 tablespoons,
Nobody.
you take half of the pot, right? And then you go back for some more. And if you look at our diets, we Africans in particular, but people everywhere, but let's focus since, it's Talk to Me
Talk to
Africa.
me, Africa. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Think about it. We have a carbohydrate heavy diet.
We do.
We eat koki with plantains. Think
Yes.
about it. So there is koki. You
Mm-hmm.
made it with beans. Beans are
Mm-hmm.
starchy vegetables. They're the same as rice for all intents and purposes.
Mm-hmm.
You eat it with plantains and you loaded it with palm oil. So you're gonna say that you want to eat what's the other one? The other cookie, the one you put fish and meat.
Cocky corn.
Well, cookie corn is another culprit. So you use it, you make cookie corn with corn and you eat it with plantains.
Yeah.
That's a double whammy.
Mm-hmm.
You take egusi pudding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Egusi has some protein, but it also has a lot of starch. And you
Yeah.
eat it with bobolo or miondo.
Oh my God.
Now they taste delicious. Don't
They
get me
do.
wrong. I can, if I had to change my diet from an African diet, I probably would not want to live.
Yeah.
But you have to find a way to eat it without it destroying your health.
Yeah.
You know, uh, if we want to go further, if you remember in Cameroon, I think I talked about this another time, which is like the biggest offender. That delicious thing they make in the morning, in cafeterias around on the street, they take spaghetti, beat it in a
And
ton
eggs.
of palm oil with vegetable oil and fry the vegetable oil
Did
with
I eat that at
spaghetti and
University of
egg,
Boya?
and you put it in the bread. Pain chargé.
Pain chargé. Wow. This, I
You
mean,
know,
so, but we say that the African foods are not processed. So I'm okay if I want to eat my gari or my fufu, I compare it with the chips, a bag of chips. I'm like, that's processed. Mine is not processed. So what's the difference? Processed carbs and unprocessed carbs. Am I not okay eating my African food that's not processed?
okay. So I'll give you my take on it. I understand all the hoopla about processed foods,
Mm-hmm.
excessively processed foods. I get it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But what does it serve you if you eat unprocessed foods and you weigh 100 pounds more than you should? Like your risk of other diseases is the same. Now people tend to focus on, processed foods, and some of them are carcinogens. We
Yeah.
covered it, but those are very few. The evidence for that is really debatable. What we know is that eating too much food, whether processed or unprocessed, leads to the same result: obesity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we can work on that piece, right? Our foods, if you eat it is true, we don't have a lot of processed foods. We tend to eat things that come from the ground. I think women still go to the market and buy plantains, that were just harvested. But if you eat a bunch of plantains, you're going to gain weight and then you have
Well,
diabetes. What did you really achieve?
mm-hmm.
Maybe it would have been better if you ate unprocessed foods in small amounts and didn't have diabetes. Right? So we need to, I always tell my patients to shift your mindset to calories. Think about calories, because what really bothers us, why you're here in my office having this conversation with me, wasn't processed versus unprocessed foods. It was too much calories or too little calories.
Yeah. Yeah, I read somewhere that the best way to lose weight is to watch your insulin spikes. So each time you eat, it spikes your insulin. And then what happens? And the person was saying that it's not about exercise. You can eat as much as you want, exercise as much as you want, it's not going to work. But if you watch your insulin spike, that is going to help you control your weight. What does that mean? I couldn't get the total gist of it. What's
Okay, which
insulin when it
answer
comes
do
to
you
weight?
want? You want me to give the good, educated, nice answer or the real answer?
Let's have both.
Okay. The educated, nice answer is that this is somebody who's misguided. But the real thing I want to say, that's absolute nonsense. Makes no sense medically. Again, I'm sorry for people who might feel offended, but my uh, patients, I always tell them, if I owe you one thing as a doctor, it's honesty. If we get into the field of opinions, I generally don't even have an opinion on things. But I can tell you when it comes, and I say this as harshly as I can, because I've heard it a lot from many patients, and people have been misguided by this. Insulin spikes mean absolutely nothing when it comes to weight gain. It is true that insulin is an anabolic hormone. It builds stuff. It clears sugar from the blood when we eat, and so helps us build. It helps the body build fat, build glycogen stores, which is a stores of sugar, build fat, which is a storage for energy. You need insulin. Now, if you imagine a world where you eat no food at all, what would insulin spikes do to you?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
If you eat too much, of course, insulin has to clear all that sugar. Now, the focus on foods that raise insulin levels and all of that, let me break it to you. If you do not have diabetes, please don't ever talk about insulin. Never, ever, ever. Has nothing to do with you. The only time we worry about insulin is for people who have diabetes. Like, why would you, Mabel, who does not have diabetes, I don't know your medical history, but I'm just saying.
I do not.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you worry about insulin? You have
Yeah.
the only thing you need to worry about is how much food you eat. Now, I saw somebody share the video, send me a video of a medical student somewhere who had this video with millions of views talking about how people have it all wrong. It's not obesity is not caused by excess food intake. It's because of insulin spikes and all of that. And I had a strong urge to go in and write and say, my dear, you got to go back and open the physiology textbook, okay? Look up lipolysis, look up glycogenolysis, look up glycolysis. Okay. If you read your medical textbook focused on physiology, you'll understand that at the end of the day, all weight gain is an energy balance issue. Can be determined by psychology, can be determined by genetics, can be determined by behavior. But at the end of the day, every single bit of extra weight we gain is due to an energy imbalance. We took more than our body needed, and the body converted the excess energy into fat, period. That's all there is to it. Anybody who tells you insulin spikes here and there, it's nonsense. They're usually trying to sell you something.
Right. Talk about fasting and obesity. So what about fasting? If I choose to fast, that means I choose not to eat at certain periods of the day. Is that one of the best ways to help me lose weight if I don't want to exercise? Can I just say I'm going to fast?
Yes. I mean, definitely fasting, going back to what I said earlier about the energy imbalance or energy balance, fasting reduces the amount of energy you give your body, right? It reduces the amount of food you eat. So by definition, you stand a better chance of staying under your caloric intake for that day. Let me speak English. You stand a better chance of staying under the amount of food you're supposed to eat on that day if you fast. But you remember I posted a video a while ago of a guy. It was a funny video I saw on Instagram. And the guy was
about to wait. He's waiting for the time.
Watching
and you say it's not punishment.
So if that's your attitude, when you break that fast, you will have a feast, right? You will turn around and eat 3,000 calories, and you might as well not have fasted. Yeah. So fasting is great, but that too, you have to understand why you're doing it, right? Because if you fast from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then at 7:30 p.m., you eat 3,000 calories, your body still has to process all that excess energy. If your resting metabolic rate was 2,000 calories and you give it 3,000 calories, guess what's going to happen? The extra 1,000 calories, your body will turn it into fat.
Yeah, that's right. I have fasted like 6 to 6. So it's easier for me, especially when I don't work from home. I can easily do a 6 a.m. to a 6 p.m. fast. And what I realized is at the end of the day, I'm not even hungry. And I said, but why am I eating? Because I don't feel like I need food right now. So what if I continue for another 12 hours? Is that good for my body or bad for my body or good for my weight loss management?
That's an excellent question, Mabel. So you can fast for 3 days if you want, right? The problem is that it's not sustainable. Because someday you will have to revert, you have to go back to eating. How are you going to behave when you're no longer fasting? That's why I consider most things outside of the knowledge of food and nutrition gimmicks, right? Because a lot of times even people go on a 21-day fast. I want to go to the Bahamas, I'm turning 50, I'm going to Punta Cana, I'm turning so-and-so, I'm going to Montego Bay, and I want to look great and stuff. I go on a 21-day fast, drop 20 pounds. Then when you come back within a month, you regain the 20, right? I mean, there are stories like I know so many. I could sit here all day with you and recount, these stories because that's what I see every day. And this is all because anything short of knowing that, what you just said, you can go 12 hours without eating. Nothing will happen. Truly nothing. And I don't care what people tell you. Other doctors tell you, you got to eat 6 times a day because when you eat, it speeds up your metabolism. That's all nonsense. If you do not eat, the body has processes in place to face starvation, right? For instance, if you go 10 hours, you don't eat, your liver can store glucose, sugar, in the form of glycogen and allow you to go 10, 12 hours without eating. Then, if you go 24 hours without eating, guess what's going to happen? See that excess fat that you don't like, that I don't like, that's hanging around my belly? That is for days that you don't eat. When you have nothing, when the basic energy currency of the body, calories, runs out, your body has to break down that fat and make up the difference. That's how you lose weight. You understand? And I think people are very disconnected from the weight loss process. So when patients come to see me, I always spend the first 20 minutes explaining exactly how this weight loss is going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? So you walk out with a clear understanding. It is not going to be magic. It's not going to be Ozempic. It's not Monjaro. It's going to be you eating less than your body needs. Because if you don't eat less than your body needs, your body is going to turn the excess into fat. So instead of losing, you will gain. And if you give your body exactly the amount of calories it needs, it has no need to burn fat. So it will hold on. You are at an energy balance. You will not gain, you will not lose. So the only way you lose weight is by giving your body less food than it needs. There is no magic involved in weight loss. It does not involve magic. You must make sure you give your body less food. Everything else is a gimmick. For instance, I was telling you, why do we insist on people eating a lot of protein? Because protein fills you and gives you less calories. You can eat like, I'm sure every one of us has been there. I can eat a whole pot of jollof rice, which weighs probably, say, 8 pounds. But I cannot eat 8 pounds of chicken.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
If you try to eat 8 pounds
And
of
the
chicken,
rice is the carb and the chicken is a protein.
it's a protein.
Makes sense, yeah.
Because protein is heavier. Protein has something called a higher thermic index. That is, the body spends more energy to break down protein than carbohydrates, right? And you can eat carbs and never get full. Most people can eat bread and never get full. They just stop because they run out of bread, right? You cannot, but you cannot eat. If you give me, for instance, I love roasted fish, poisson braisé, right? You can give me like, when I go to Cameroon, like sell the huge one, the
Go
white
to
bar.
Down Beach Limbe.
Exactly. So by the time you're done eating that whole thing, you need to go take a nap.
Yeah.
But convert that into jollof rice. Convert it into puff puff.
Yeah, or to one boulangerie, like we say in Cameroon, yeah.
Or yes, or go to a boulangerie and get some
long bread.
Those long breads with with all the goodies. You can eat all of that and go for some more.
Wow.
So that's the difference. That's why we tell people, or I personally, I limit the amount of carbohydrates, and you tend to serve it in one hand, because if you don't limit carbs, you will eat forever. But most people cannot eat a lot of protein. At some point, they have to stop. At some point, the protein, you eat, think about any protein you like. Chicken.
Beans. Is beans or protein or plus, yeah?
Beans, I consider, not personally, but even physiologically, beans is closer to rice than to meat, because beans is a starchy vegetable, and they're called starchy vegetables because they have a lot of starch.
And we eat beans and rice a lot together.
And with bananas to go with
Wow.
it. And bread, never
And
mind.
bread.
Yes, back home, So it's all delicious, and I love it.
Yeah.
But you want to limit some of them. You want to limit it. So for instance, if you're going to eat rice and beans, remember that you're eating rice and rice. So you want to limit it. It has to be in a small bowl, right? I advise people to say, take your child's plate. If you have a 6-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever bowl you give them to eat, that's where you put your carbohydrate. Put your carbs. If you come to my house, you see, when I want to serve myself right, I get like a small, one of my daughter's bowls when they were younger, and that's where I put my rice. And then I go to town on the fish, right? And if I have chicken, I love kati. Now, kati has, some of it has like the skin, so, skinless. But the difference between skinless and
the skin chicken
with the skin is about 50 calories.
Okay.
So I will not pass on my catty because of 50 extra calories. I'm just going to go work out and burn those extra 50, but I'll eat the catty with the skin. Okay. But you can eat it, but you can't really eat it the way you will eat rice. First of all, you have to fight with bones and, all sorts of things. And so by the time you're done eating it, you haven't exhausted.
Yeah.
But if you take your rice and sit down and cross your legs and
Easy.
you eat the whole pot,
Easy.
So,
Yeah.
I
After
mean,
I read
think
your
about,
book, I have a cup at home. It's a little bowl. I mean, when I measure it, like I tell my friends all about it, it's a cup, like the baking size when they say 1 cup of flour, that cup size, that's the size of my little bowl. And I don't joke with that bowl. I use it and I put it in a plate because when you go for a plate, you're filling up the plate without knowing that you're going to eat all of this food, but it's
yes.
good. And what I've realized is that when you train yourself to eat that amount of food, you become satisfied. Because
Yes.
trust me, you can still eat the whole plate and feel like it's just good. You keep going. But because you've trained your mind to use that bowl and just eat from there, it gets to a point where you're okay with that. It could take
Yes.
some time, but I have become okay with using my little bowl and measuring my food in it.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
fantastic. That is, I mean, you that is basic weight loss wisdom that is lost in all the, talk about insulin, all the
Mm-hmm.
things about insulin spikes and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Simple thing like what you're doing. That is all that is needed really to control carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
if
so
you
I
do,
know now what happens when I eat. Like I said, your book has made me not be afraid of the scale. I get on the scale almost every day. It's right by
Mhm.
my bathroom. And
Yeah,
so I know that I ate this rice and I get on the scale, nothing happened. I go, okay, so that was good. Nothing happened. It didn't go up or down. Same weight. It is
yeah,
really beneficial, honestly. It is. So I know what to eat when, and I'm okay with that.
They return the power to you. You are in control. You know,
Yes, it does.
you are in charge.
But as you were talking, two things came to my mind. You talked about it's not magic, but again, you are encouraging us to fast because calorie intake, we have to watch for that. It's going to help us maintain the weight. And you say if I give myself more than my body should take, I have to burn the extra calories. So my question is, do we all need the same amount of calories intake every day, or it depends on our body mass index?
Yes, that's an excellent question. It goes back to what you asked me earlier. The resting you have, so the amount of calories you need a day
Mm.
has three determinants, right? So you've got your resting metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories that your body has to burn, regardless of what else you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's the amount of calories necessary to your basic functions, your body's basic functions. Your heart has to stop. Even if you sit in a chair where you're sitting all
Mm-hmm.
day and do nothing, your heart is still beating, right?
Yeah.
Your your lungs are still breathing. So
Mm-hmm.
all these functions are still going on. Now, outside of that, you have other things, the second component, and that's usually about 70% of your caloric
So as
expenditure.
they're going on, mean they're using calorie, they're using energy.
Yes, because if you
Okay.
sit in that chair all day, your heart is beating every
Yeah.
second, at least 60 to 100 beats per minute.
Mm-hmm.
Your
Mm-hmm.
lungs are, you're breathing, you're moving all the chest muscles, your
Mm-hmm.
gastrointestinal system is working, you are still
Functioning. Yeah.
making urine, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
need a certain amount of, I tell patients, you need a certain amount of calories to keep the lights on in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have to, then secondly, you will have like the amount of calories you burn with exercise, right? Which is exercise activity caloric burn, if you go about walking and doing all those things. And then the third amount is something called the thermic energy of food, the amount of calories you need to process, food you eat. But the vast majority of it, really, I tell people to eat to their resting metabolic rate. I cover this in the book, on my social media, weight loss advice I give people. I always start with the resting metabolic rate because it's 75% for most people of your caloric expenditure. So that is the number you want to eat. That's the amount of calories you want to determine and eat in a day. If you eat that, you will generally maintain your weight. Now, if you want to eat, if you want to lose weight, I tell people, depending on what you do, what kind of work you do, what type of activities you do during the day, but generally subtract 500 calories from that, and you
Okay.
will see the scale move.
Yeah. It's really hard to put that into practice. When you look at the food, you say how much calories is this, but I think you talked about using your daughter's little bowl, which I think is an excellent idea. People who have kids and people who don't even have kids, go get a kid's bowl that they use to feed them. It will really help you to know what your body needs, and you stay around that. Is obesity, if it's now a disease, is it preventable? Like, can I say I'm never gonna get obese because it's a disease? My parents are obese, my siblings are. How do I not get there, even if I have the potentials, because it is a family thing?
Yes, again, so you can have a family. Well, again, you can have a family
Mm-hmm.
where people are larger, bigger, right? We've seen
Yeah.
also in families like that. But it doesn't have to be your destiny,
Mm.
because if you choose otherwise, you choose to eat less, you eat to
Yeah.
choose to exercise, or not
Mm-hmm.
less, but choose to eat to your energy needs, and you
Yeah.
choose to exercise, and you choose to have behaviors that are different from the other people in your family who are
Yeah.
large, it's not going to be your portion, as we
Yeah.
say back home,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't necessarily. Now, the genetics plays, a role. You have a certain predisposition,
Yeah.
but it doesn't make you get up and go to the pantry. It doesn't make you go to the grocery store and buy chin chin and all sorts of goodies and stuck them in the pantry, right? You can control those things. They have nothing to do with genetics.
Mhm.
So the vast majority of things are behavior rather than, genetics.
Mhm. Wow, I like it. Behavior rather than genetics. Recently, I have been on a stable path with my weight, and I tell myself it's been cold and I like to exercise outdoors. I haven't been doing it, but I'm stable. I'm like, what if I had done some exercise? Then it would have helped me a lot more, and
Hmm.
I don't want to get to that point where, well, I was wrong with you, but I feel comfortable with where I am. So if somebody chooses to fast for longer periods, how much water do they need to go with that? There's a lot of talk about dry fasting these days. It helps you to lose weight because you want to lose water weight as well. So don't add the water to your body. How much water do I need if I have to do a 14 or 12 hours fast? And you
Well,
had a
again,
video of people drinking so much water one time. I remember that video.
I think people exaggerate when it comes to water. You
Mm,
know, I did a video once about this issue of water, but because it was a 90-second video, I didn't really get into, the
mm-hmm,
meat of things.
mm-hmm,
The fact of the matter is that if you, again, going back to our medical textbooks, physiology, nephrology, if you go back, or any doctors out there, if you remember in medical school, the primary determinant of you drinking water, Mabel, is thirst, right? Because you are a fully functional person. You don't have any limitations, neither physical nor mental or
mm-hmm.
cognitive. If you want to drink water, you can get up and go to the kitchen and get water, right?
Yes.
That is why God put into you the sensation of thirst, because when you are thirsty, you have to drink water.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the people who we worry about their water intake are older individuals, maybe people who have dementia, people who have lost your cognitive abilities, people who live who are in the hospital, who are bedridden, who cannot get up and get their own water. Those are the people you tend to supply them water at a regular rhythm. Breaking news. All these people walking around with gallons of water, drinking all day. I'll give you a simple test to do. Put that gallon of water, look at the color of the water, and drink all of it. Go to the bathroom, urinate, look at the color of the urine. It's going to be the same. You understand? The color of your urine will be the same as the color of water, because when you drink water that your body doesn't need, your body, it blocks the secretion of a hormone called antidiuretic hormone. This hormone's role is to balance the amount of sodium in your blood by extracting water out of your urine or not extracting water. So without getting into the nitty-gritty of physiology, if you drink water your body doesn't need, your body does not have a water tank. Remember, our human bodies is already about 60% water. All the water your body needs, your body turns the faucet, pim, goes out as urine. All of it. It does not stay to fix your skin, does not stay to make you lose weight. It's all nonsense. All of that water goes out as urine because the amount of sodium, that is salt, in your urine, in your blood, is finely regulated. Sodium is the most important electrolyte in your blood together with potassium. It's responsible for something called action potential. The reason why I can lift my arm up is because I have to have a certain amount of sodium go into cells, potassium goes out, and I can do all my functions, right? So please stop it with this craze of drinking water as though there's no tomorrow. Drink water if you're thirsty. If you're not thirsty, don't drink. You don't have to compulsively sit and drink a glass of water every hour. It does nothing. Does not fix your skin, does not make you lose weight. The only thing it can do, which I tell people, the only thing it can do is that it helps you not eat, right? If you have a bottle of water, you're drinking it, maybe it helps you if you drink the water rather than go to the kitchen and get a snack, right? It's a distraction from other things. But water itself has no power to make you lose weight. It has a behavioral advantage in that if you decide that, okay, rather than eat almonds every 3 hours, I'll just drink some water, that is great. But you cannot drink water as though it's a medication because there is a thing called water intoxication. Many people have wound up in the emergency room with something called psychogenic polydipsia. They drink so much water that it lowers your sodium and they have to be admitted to the hospital, sometimes even in the ICU. Now, you see it a lot in people with psychiatric disturbances. That's why it's called psychogenic polydipsia. But you have a lot of people. I have a lot of patients. I'll tell you, simple, right? Who come to see me and like, Doc, I wake up at night so many times at night to urinate. I'm like, how many times? I mean, like 6, 7 times. I pee all the time. Doc, is there something wrong with my bladder or my prostate? I'm like, so how much water do you drink? Oh, I stay on top of my water, Doc. I drink, I drink 2, of these bottles. I drink about 8, 9 of them. I stay well hydrated. I'm like, okay.
That's
so
the
the
word,
first
be
thing you got to
hydrated.
do is stop drinking.
Yeah.
Right? Stop drinking. Who asked you to drink 9 bottles of water a day? Why are you doing it? Stop it. Okay? Drink water when you are thirsty. If you're a fully functional person who can get up and go to the kitchen when they are hungry, when they're thirsty, drink when you're thirsty. I will tell you personally, I do not drink water reflexively. If I'm thirsty, I get up, I get a glass of water and I drink. If I'm not thirsty, I stay. Because the body, God, other people believe in other things, but the body is well designed to address moments where you don't have water. I'll give you another example, right? If you go 6 hours without drinking water, look at your urine. It's going to have a yellowish tint because your body will secrete antidiuretic hormone. I talked about it earlier, ADH. It will reabsorb most of the water, not all, but most of the water from your urine. And so your kidneys will excrete urine that is yellowish because it is now concentrated with waste products, right? And so your body reabsorbs water from the urine. If you drink excessively, the contrary happens. Your body excretes all that water out because it doesn't need it. So the bottom line is all the water you spend all that time drinking, all you're doing is sending yourself to the bathroom frequently.
Makes me feel better because I have coworkers who have these jugs of water, and I always tell them, you guys make me feel like I'm not taking care of my body because I have a cup at my desk at work. I take it to the fountain and I drink and I come back with a cup empty. But coworkers are like with these gallons. I'm like, what is wrong with me?
It makes absolutely no sense. Physiologically, as I said, from a medical standpoint and a physiology standpoint, it makes no difference. You're going to urinate. All it's going to do is make you go to the bathroom frequently. You're not doing anything. You're not hydrating yourself. You're not none of that stuff. It is
Does it prevent your body from secreting the toxins that you have because you have too much water in you?
no, no. Your body will find a way to eliminate toxins. Again, as I told you earlier, you just have to look at the color of your urine. You don't drink for long. People always say, I think I was dehydrated, and it's a word that's thrown around carelessly, right?
Like the word starving.
Exactly, like starving and dehydration and all of that. And if you starve, your body goes into starvation mode. It's all nonsense.
Yeah.
It makes no
Wow,
physiological sense.
this is very interesting. I think because of social media today, there's so many things that we need to debunk when it
Yes,
comes to
yes.
health and how to take care of your body. You just mentioned that water doesn't help your skin because people always say like, "Oh, my skin, because I drink much water, my skin." I'm like, I don't think so.
No,
What
no,
do you
really.
eat and how often do you eat it and how much do you eat it?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
You
I read
said
a
it.
word called autophagy, if I'm saying it right. That's where your body can actually absorb, like you said, the shock of itself if it's starving. There's so much that our bodies can do. So I think we should limit the amount of things we feed our bodies because they are built, like you just said, to take care of themselves.
Yes. And, if you remember, it takes like 3 months to die from starvation.
Thank you.
If you're drinking water, you will live. You can go 3 months. I mean, now you will look like you have not eaten for 3 months, but it takes
And
a
you will
long
not
time
die.
to die.
Yeah. Thank you. I
Now,
tell my coworkers that I have a coworker whom I connected with because of food. So she came here and she's like, I'm starving. I go, no, you're not. That was my first day at work. She goes, who are you? I'm like, you're not starving. It's 11 o'clock. And look at you. So, wow, this is very interesting
I
conversation. Now
know.
let's talk about obesity and children.
Mhm.
Children who are obese. Is there something they can do at that young age? Calorie wise, exercise wise, medication wise to help them take care of their bodies and their weight?
Okay. So I am a little bit uh, on I would say, the harsher side of things when it comes to children and obesity, right? Because for children, children cannot go to the grocery store and buy food. They don't have money. They don't have a job. My 13-year-old doesn't have a job. She can only eat what I give her. She can only eat what I buy. They, their children are fully in the parents' control. So if a child is overweight or obese, it is not the parents' fault, but close to it, because it is the fault of the person who brings the food at home, the person who actually takes your money and purchases the food the child eats.
Mhm.
You understand? So now I've said it before, and it's caused some controversy, and people weren't too happy. But if my daughters, my children are obese, it's my fault. I did it to them. I bought the snacks and stuck them in the house. I bought the high calorie foods, and when they were hungry, they went and got that, right? So it starts with the parents because
Yeah.
children are vulnerable. And as I said, children do not go to the store. They
Mhm.
can go, but they don't have money
Money. You pay for
you know,
what they grab.
to pay for what they grab. And you can control, you as a parent, as me, and not Takim as a parent, I have to be in control of what my children eat. It is part of a parental duty to tell a child, no, you cannot eat that. And I do not care how many tantrums you throw between now and Jesus returns, you're not going to have it.
I agree.
You understand? And so when have patients who tell me all the time that, the reason why I have snacks at home is because my children like snacks and it's for them. Well, if it's not good for you, it's not good for your children. Like, why would you buy snacks that you wouldn't want to eat, but you buy them for your children,
Yeah.
right? So there is a lot of science and research on childhood obesity and all of that. I boiled it down to very simple terms. If my children are obese, it is my fault. I did that to them. I brought the food home because you can now, if a child and if a child is struggling with eating a lot of carbs and all of that,
Mhm.
it is the job of the parents to make sure that they eat vegetables before they
Yeah.
load up on the carbs. It's the job
Mhm.
of the parent to make sure that you give them a lot of bitter leaf and introduce them to jama and all these things, right? It is the job of the parent. Now, a lot of times children will eat the way the parents tend to eat.
Absolutely.
if you're not eating that way, they're not going to follow. Like if you don't eat vegetables, your kids are not going to eat vegetables, and you're not going to make them eat vegetables because you don't find the importance of eating vegetables. So for children, childhood obesity starts with parenting. You know, the whole campaign of, if you remember back in the days, Michelle Obama and, healthy
Mm-hmm.
snacks in schools and all of that. Well, guess what? The children do not work.
Yeah.
Somebody is giving the money to go and buy the snacks,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if your child is overweight and weighs 40, 50 pounds more than he should, then stop giving him money to buy snacks in school. There are
Right.
healthy food choices. Let him eat from the cafeteria in school. He rides the bus to school, rides the bus back from school. He doesn't need money.
Mm-hmm.
If anything happens in school, the teachers call you, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is where parents have to take charge. You have to be a parent and make sure that what your child is eating is appropriate, and make sure that you are eating something that you want your child to eat.
Some African parents that I've talked to, they would say that my kids started going to school and they lost the African taste, or they lost the food taste of what I give them at home. So now I tend to make them some other kind of food like mac and cheese and pizza because that's what they've learned in school and that's what they like. What would you say to such a parent?
Well, whatever, regardless of what the child tends to eat, I mean, if you look at your child, your son, and I look at my children, they eat African food at home. They eat pizza. They eat spaghetti. They eat all of these things, all the things that they are surrounded by here. So it's not a one size fit all. Most children from African homes will eat fufu and eru. They will eat moi moi. They will eat pounded yam, but they will also eat pizza. They will
Yeah.
also eat chicken. They will also eat spaghetti and all of that. It is all the same way you limit. You have to still limit whatever amount of food they are eating. A
Mm-hmm.
child still, as you cannot sit and the child takes 3 servings of rice and you're watching,
Mm-hmm.
right? You cannot. If a child sits and eats 3 lumps of fufu, you got to stop him at some point.
Mm-hmm.
That, you just need one. If you want to eat some more, get a salad.
Mm-hmm.
That is part of parenting. I have never accepted that, I should just tell my children, I don't want them
Whatever.
to have body dysmorphia. I don't want them to have self-confidence issues. Let them just eat. No, no, no. You do not let them just sit and not do their homework.
Yeah.
You do tell them to do chores, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can tell them to not to eat excessively.
Mm-hmm.
You have to teach them good behaviors. It's part of parenting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take on childhood obesity.
I
Very
like it.
simple.
I like it. So it's a disease. Therefore, if a child has it, I know you've talked about how it can be prevented, how we parents can help the children. But what if they already have the disease? How can we help them?
Well,
Besides controlling the food,
yes,
is there medication for children? Are they on the Ozempic, the Monjaro for children as well?
yes, there is really no limitation. But for children, again, I will speak for myself. I rarely see children below 16. So I'm not a
Okay.
pediatrician. Most of
Okay.
my patients, the vast majority are 18 and above.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for children, exercise, activity is more important, right? If you control other things at home, like, the pantry, what's in the pantry, limiting high calorie snacks, limiting the Cokes and the sodas and, all those things. If you limit all of that, now the next thing is make sure the kid is in some sort of activity. Because unfortunately, we are not raising kids like in Cameroon. I
Where
don't know
they're
what it is
outside.
like in Cameroon, where they're outside and they walk and they do all these things the way we grew up. Here, kids are either sitting on the couch watching YouTube, playing on their phones, and doing zero activity.
Yeah.
So you have to find a way to enroll that child in some exercise activity, whether it's basketball, it's football, or something that gets him out of the house. Now, I know for a lot of parents, I have a daughter who is in a travel volleyball team. It's a lot of work, right?
Yes.
It's a lot of driving here and there for practice and tournaments and all of that. But it has advantages because you get the children off the couch. They're not
Mm-hmm.
constantly on their phones and sitting and snacking.
Mm-hmm.
It's all part of the deal, right? So you have to get the children into activity.
You have
If you
to.
see a lot of times children who are overweight or obese, usually they don't do any activity. right? They don't, there are children who maybe the parents don't tell them. Again, when it comes to phones, Mabel, parents should be on the child's phone, set
Mhm.
times, limits, right? My kid's phone from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., nobody gets on it.
Mhm.
Pop shuts off, right? If they want an extra 15 minutes, they have to request, and it depends on my mood.
Mhm.
Right? You turn it off, and I look on my phone, and I see how much time they spend on the phones,
Mhm.
And so you have to train children
Mhm.
to do these things. You have to. It's part of parenting.
It
You have
is.
to train children.
It is. I like that. I have an 8-year-old daughter who my mother takes care of. And I remember it was last year, and I walk into the bathroom. She was taking a shower with grandma. I'm like, what happened to your waistline? I see this kid every single day, but I didn't see how she had, got round there. I'm like, there's something wrong here. Okay, at that age, she was in second grade. They had no school activity. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? You play out, but it's not enough because I make my kids go outside and do something, or in the house we jump around.
Yeah.
And so luckily this year they had something called Girls on the Run. And I didn't know about it. She's like, Mom, I want to join this. I'm like, great idea.
Yeah.
Join on the run. So every Tuesday and Thursday they have to stay back and just run.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is 2 miles. They just start running. And I
Yeah.
have seen a tremendous change. I'm
Yeah.
like, why are you so long now? You just look skinny. But it's helpful. And she looks forward to staying after school and just run.
Yes.
And the goal is to, at the end of May, they'll do a 5K. I'm like, are you going to be able to
Mm-hmm.
do that? So you get them into, I agree. What I'm saying is I'm
Yeah.
agreeing with you that it's a parent responsibility
Yes.
to make sure your kids get in line. Like I said, I saw my daughter every day in clothes because I go to work, grandma puts her on the bus, showers her. I never really saw her naked. So
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, I haven't seen you for a few days naked. What's happening with your waistline? So we're going to work on that and fix it. So it's really important for us to observe our children and help them not to fall into this
Yes.
into this
Don't wait until it's too late. As
yeah,
Mabel did, catch it when it's 5 pounds overweight. When it's
yeah,
10, you
yeah.
know, it's I said it's, and you'll be amazed. I think if you talk to my daughters, Iris, especially, who's quite vociferous, she will tell you when they go to school at the kind of food they serve them in school, and I see the way they criticize the food. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, some things stick.
Yeah.
They do stick.
My kids call it jail food. I'm like, have you been to jail before? Like say prison food. Dr. Takem, this has been a very educative conversation with you. It flowed so easily, and I think I learned a lot. I hope that the audience learned a lot too. A couple of comments online. Dr. Mercy says these are all. So you're saying choices and self-control is what will work. Yes, I think that's what you're saying. Choices
Absolutely.
and self-control. And then she also says lingering and cultivating behaviors. Yeah, you
Yep.
cultivate the behavior and you make it
Absolutely.
work. And she's one person that I share my stuff with. So it's helped to talk about it with somebody. We do what we call weekly diet. So this week is green, the next week is
Yes.
low carb, the next week is mostly
Awesome.
liquid. And so if you, to me, that's what that has helped me. And again, let me keep saying this. Your book has helped me not to be afraid of the scale. Not
Yep.
to be afraid of the scale. I do it
Awesome.
and I feel good about it. I want to thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with Talk to Me Africa audience and the rest of the world. Your videos are so educational, and I think people should take it seriously and learn a lot from it. So thank you so much for coming back to Talk to Me Africa.
Thank you for having me. And I guess we'll do it again another time.
Yes, we should. Did I tell you to bring an African proverb? Did I ask you for an African proverb this time around?
No, you didn't. But let me see. Uh, I, I'm blanking out on my Chinua
I know.
Achebe.
I always feel to
Uh,
remind people who have been here before, like, hey, bring an African proverb, just say
I
something. And
forgot. And I have a
that's
lot of them. I loved Chinua Achebe. I
yes,
memorized a lot of the proverbs from his
yes,
books,
yes.
but I'll have to think about it again.
It's all right. There'll be another time for you to bring an African proverb to Talk to Me Africa. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you live by what you preach because I did say you look good. So people, if he's your doctor, you should be proud.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
See you
Dr.
next
Takem.
time.
Have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.